Hi dancers, it's Kirsten. Welcome back to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel. Today, we are diving straight into a topic that is controversial. It's difficult to talk about. I've been nervous to share this discussion, yet I think it's really important to post. It is, of course, as you've seen in the title, about the discussion of the prevalence of grooming, sexual harassment, and sexual assault in the ballet industry. This is something that many of us have become aware of because of headline news like the Alexandra Waterbury case and the situation with Boston Ballet and several other stories that have come out. As difficult as it is to talk about this and to think about this reality, I do believe it is something that's important to address. And given that one of my passions and things that I believe in using this channel for is I really am passionate about speaking to the difficult parts of the dancer's existence, the dark sides of the ballet industry, and trying as best as I can with whatever tools I have to shed light on that, to give tools to help dancers overcome it, and just doing my best to spread information that I hope can help another dancer to have a healthier journey through ballet and a happier one that has more longevity to it than what I experienced and what some of my friends have experienced. I want better for all of you. So I decided with my friend Ella that we were going to have a discussion and film it and share it with all of you about grooming, sexual harassment, and sexual assault, and how specifically we can start to have productive discussions with our peers, how we can start to see signs of this in our own experience, and how we can even identify others going through this silently, so that we can hopefully bring what is in the dark to the light. We can hopefully take preventative actions to stop bad things from getting worse. And I want to say, as a pre-frame, both myself and my friend Ella, neither of us at all in this discussion are claiming or pretending to be experts. We are not. This is not a channel or a resource that is fully equipped to help those who are struggling with serious matters of assault. However, this video is from the tone of us dancers speaking to you dancers, and almost like as maybe even big sister figures, just sharing some things that we've seen, that we've experienced, some things we're learning, some things we wish we knew, so that hopefully you can have, protection when you need it, and help when you need it, or a little clue of what to do when you need it. So what we've done is we've shared this discussion. Ella shares a bit about her story. I share a little bit of my story. If this topic is at all very upsetting to you or triggering to you, please do shut this off. You don't have to watch this if it is detrimental to your well-being. However, if you are in the place to listen to this, we do handle this discussion with as much care and sensitivity as possible so that it is not upsetting to each of you, but rather educational and hopefully uplifting by empowering you with awareness that we wish we had. And of course, as I mentioned several times throughout the conversation, we list, I have put in the description of this video many resources where you can educate yourself on the definitions of each of these terms, how to spot them, what to do about them, from actual experts in these fields. So please do educate yourself. It is well worth the maybe 10 minutes you might spend doing so. It could really save you a lot of trouble. So please do look at those resources. Please share this with other dancers. Get a discussion started on this, please, because as we share in this video, we do really, really believe that the more we normalize talking about the things we see and checking them with trusted peers, with family members, taking this information to people in authority who can hopefully handle it, it's really important that we start with communication and awareness. So that's what we're trying to spread with this video. I do hope that it is something that is useful for you, and please respectfully share what insights you have on this topic in the comments. We'd love to hear it, again, as long as the discussion is respectful. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that this does some good in the ballet world. Here we go. Welcome to my friend Ella, who, by the way, I haven't really introduced her yet. Ella is a professional ballet dancer, and also she has danced professionally with a contemporary company, as she's talked about. She and I used to dance professionally together, and she has a background of not only training in top pre-professional schools, but also she started, like me, in a small local school. I'm choosing to keep her bio vague because we do want to, not get too many names involved in this. That's not the purpose of this video, but she is a really beautiful dancer, beautiful person, as you'll see, and I'm very grateful for her courage and willingness to share about her experience with all of you, and it's really coming from a place of care for the ballet community. So please do enjoy this discussion, and welcome to my friend Ella. Hey Ella. Thanks for joining me in this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes, and as I've already shared with the people watching, I'm very just grateful that we can have a conversation, you and me, as kind of dancer to dancer to dancers watching.
Totally.
And as I've also shared, like, we're really coming from a place of talking about personal experience, talking through questions together, and really we're trying to be a starting point for dancers to then go in the description and read through different resources, educate yourself, and talk with other dancers in your life, y'all, as well, to check in with them. How are they doing with these things? What do they think? So yeah, let's be the starting point here. And speaking of starting points, I'd love to hear what has your experience been throughout your training and professional career with noticing grooming in your own experience, and then also harassment? We're going straight in.
All right, diving in. Well, thank you for just being able to facilitate this kind of conversation, because I know it's maybe something that isn't talked about a lot and is kind of uncomfortable and awkward to talk about at sometimes. But I think it's super, super important. So thank you for being willing to do that. And yeah, I guess I'm 24 now, and I feel like I'm, for the first time in my life, in a place where I'm kind of like able to see things a little more clearly, I guess, is where it kind of all this started. But basically, like, I had experiences in the past that happened to me in dance and outside of dance, but I had now realized more recently, like within the last 2 years, that they're all really interconnected to dance and to being a dancer. So yeah, I most recently I had an experience in a company that I had just joined, and I myself noticed behaviors that were inappropriate, and I, for the first time, was able to speak up against those behaviors. And I think for the first time too in my career, really like trust myself and recognize, like, this is not okay. I do not deserve to be treated this way. This kind of behavior does not need to be tolerated in a dance environment and in a work environment in general. But um, so yeah, I think that kind of has made me realize every place that I've trained or worked, gone to school, prior to joining this company most recently, I had had similar experiences that hadn't really been as clear to me as they are now. So I just feel like kind of excited and passionate about, like, talking about them, because I feel like um that's why I couldn't see it before, and I think that's why a lot of people don't see it before, and it's really harmful to, not have those conversations. So
Exactly. I'm very thankful for your bravery, honestly, your courage in sharing some of these things. And we will get into as much detail as you're comfortable with personally. And for any parts that we leave vague, it is with intention because it's your story to share. It is not our right to know everything, know all of your business. And,
yeah,
we will
thanks.
leave certain names out also. just so that this doesn't get more complicated than it needs to be. But
Yeah,
I am very grateful that you're using this opportunity in your own reflection to help others hopefully come to that place of awareness sooner. And I'll share from my
totally.
own personal story. I feel very thankful that the grooming and sexual harassment is actually something I have not really experienced in a notable way in my own journey. I'm very thankful for that. However, I do know and have known as the years have gone on more and more peers who have
Hmm.
only been comfortable years after the fact sharing that they have been through those things. And it has made
Yeah.
me really sad that I remember the times when I was with them in person, not knowing at all what was happening. And then only years later, figuring out at that time they were being mistreated. And with my
Yeah.
own story, I've experienced more psychological, emotional abuse personally, and I feel comfortable calling it abuse. I've poured over definitions of that many times as I've doubted myself. Was it that? Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And I only recognized it as such, like you, after the fact.
Yeah.
It's because, and we'll get into this through our conversation, the culture of ballet is so conducive. It's like a breeding ground for a lot of
Absolutely.
these issues because of the power structures, the culture of silence, the dynamic. It's a high power distance culture, which is
Yeah.
basically, as I'm sure you know, but for anyone who's watching who doesn't know, for example, in American culture, our society has a low power distance structure where we tend to see authority and we feel as if we can talk to them almost peer to peer, not always, but kind of more like that. Versus in more Eastern cultures, there's a high power distance culture where it's like there's a reverence for authority. You stay quiet, you do what you're told, kind of a thing. But in
Yeah.
ballet, it's a very high power distance culture.
Yeah.
We're taught from a young age to revere authority, to trust what they say over our own thoughts. And a lot of
Hmm.
dancers are so disconnected from their own even sense of intuition that even if they do sense something is off, we don't tend to trust that. So
It's
I'm
hard to
excited to
tell.
get
Yeah.
into that in this conversation in the hopes that the dancers watching feel like they're more able to recognize signs and start asking questions. Um, so that
Yeah.
hopefully they can feel protected rather than just realizing 4 years down the line, oh, that's what happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you touched on a lot of things there that I think are super, super important. And I agree with. I think like the structure in which ballet is, you know, the structure that it's upheld all of these years later, it's something that kind of like is a bit archaic in some ways,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we, respect this hierarchy and we're taught it from little girl age, we're just
Mhm.
like, yeah, you see the person at the front of the room and know that they are superior to you, know that they are in charge, you listen to them. And oftentimes too, I think what can be pretty damaging is when you have teachers who don't give positive reinforcement that often. And
Yeah.
so we're like which is pretty common in dance. Like we work really, really hard for that validation and those positive words. And a good job goes a long way.
Yeah.
So when like our minds, we're taught, we're trained from a young age to be, just used to that kind of behavior. It becomes really muddled by the time we're 15, 16, 17, and kind of like put into more serious circumstances. Like we're just under the impression that it's okay because we still trust the authority at the front of the room because we have our
Yeah.
whole lives.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty ingrained in our culture to, I've heard this from a particular religion before, doubt your doubts before you doubt.
uh,
And
yeah.
the sentence finishes differently for this particular situation I'm thinking about, but doubt your doubts before, essentially, in our case, before you doubt someone else's behavior. and how
Yeah,
that makes you
absolutely.
feel. So if you're comfortable
Yeah.
sharing, only as much as you're comfortable with, when what was the point, or what were some of the things you started to notice in your own journey that started to kind of add up in your mind as like something isn't okay here? What were some of those things that you noticed?
Um, well, I feel like I was always like a pretty scrawny little girl. I was always pretty petite. Um, and I went through puberty kind of like later after everybody. And when I did, it just kind of happened like really fast. And I didn't really like have time to process like what had happened to my body and how that was going to affect the way that people and men would look at me.
Mm,
And so that was just like me as a kid, like not even being a dancer. And then being put into a dance setting where we're in tights and leotards. And I think it's so crazy that our physical boundaries and our like emotional boundaries are just so different in the dance world than they are in any other work environment
yeah.
and school environment. Um, and so I feel like that in combination with, just like growing up and turning into a young woman and like all of that just kind of stacked up against me in like different ways that um I can see now were like harmful. But that's nobody's fault. That's not my fault. We don't talk about it. I didn't have anybody that talked to me about it. And we still don't talk about it as a dance community
Yeah.
in general, just like the lack of education that the teachers receive and the students receive and things to look out for and that kind of thing. But anyway, I think I remember going home from I grew up at like a smaller studio in northern Michigan, and I remember coming home from rehearsals when I was probably like 13 or 14, and I told my mom like the guy who's dancing with me, my partner, like he keeps trying to grab my waist or like grab my hips, and I knew that it didn't feel right. I didn't really know
Yeah.
why it didn't feel right. You're 14, you're just kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't like that attention. Um, and I didn't think anything of it. So that continued into, me going to summer intensives and kind of being, it's interesting because you can get muddled in so many different ways
Yeah.
because you're going through puberty and you're also, maybe getting interested in boys for the first time and getting attention. And as a dancer, we like dance for attention. We're just constantly
Yeah.
looking for that validation. And so yeah, it was interesting combination. But summer intensives, I once had a guy pull me behind in a pas de deux class. He pulled me behind a curtain and tried to kiss me, and I just thought that was normal. And I like pushed him. I was 16 at the time, and I pushed him away from me and carried on with my day, whatever. But
Yeah.
you go. I went home and had a pit in my stomach, and just like, "Ugh, that's annoying," and it just kind of experiences like that kept happening um, until like pretty much leading up to this last contract that I just took. And I'm now 24 years old. I feel like I've really like honed my skills as far as like being able to trust myself a little bit more, um, which I think is so, so important. Like being able to listen to that pit in your stomach and know like that really wasn't okay. And I don't need to be treated that way.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, in every professional setting I'd been in too, things had happened around me. I had
Mm,
heard stories of teachers getting fired for having inappropriate relations with a student, or you know, like higher up members in the company in the ranks um, having inappropriate conversation with underage girls in the school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was all kind of like rumors. I remember blocking a teacher I had at a summer intensive one time because I knew that he was messaging multiple people, and
Oh,
I was like, I'm not even going to go there. So I
yeah, no
blocked him on
thanks.
Instagram, but it was normal, you know? And
Yeah.
that was as far as the conversation went. It was just like hearsay, watch out for this person. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was just like normal behavior. And it was like, everywhere you go, that kind of thing is going to happen. And yeah, it wasn't until my last experience at this most recent company where I was like, this is really not okay, and I really don't need to put myself in this position.
Yeah.
Um, Nor does the company that I'm trying to work for have the right to put their dancers in this position. That was one of the biggest issues for me. Um, but yeah, I had found out that a company member who was in the company for several years, he had been accused multiple times of inappropriate conduct with dancers, younger dancers, underage dancers, um, that sort of a thing. And this was all information that majority of the company knew, except for me, who was a newer member. I was an apprentice, so I was in an unpaid position. He was a paid company dancer and had been in the company for several years. So he was pretty well established. Um, and yeah, I didn't know any of this information until another dancer came up to me and was like, do you know about this guy? Do you know what people are saying about him? And
Mm.
I had no idea. And yeah, basically what had happened was I had started the job, and within like the second or third week, he had started displaying um, kind of more like flirtatious behavior with me. And I was like,
Mm.
great. I just felt kind of irritated and annoyed by it, because I was like, I worked my butt off to get this job. I want to have this job. I want to, stay here and dance and really like prove to myself that I can do this and prove to the director that I deserve a contract. Um and here I was like being put into a position once again that was, to the extent of what that I knew at the time, was just like, okay, I'm being objectified and I'm being sexualized and I'm
Mm.
being hit on in
Yeah.
my work environment, which that alone is inappropriate and
For any work
irritating.
environment.
Any work
Yet
environment.
in
Yeah.
ballet, it's just, oh, boys will be boys. Not that that
Yeah.
doesn't exist in other industries. Of course it does. But if you
Yeah.
imagine this behavior with people in like pantsuits in an office downtown,
Yeah.
people would be like, what?
My partner used the analogy. He was like, somebody, walks into a post office. He, cannot get away with touching somebody's waist inappropriately, like,
Mm-mm.
or whatever. But when you're dancing with somebody, when you're partnering with somebody, like that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
So kind of where are the boundaries?
right.
Um,
It's
which
when the music
ultimately,
is on and when you're practicing.
yeah. But even stuff can happen within those two.
Totally.
So yeah, it's pretty bizarre. But
Yeah.
so yeah, it started as that kind of behavior that I had become aware of, and I came home and kind of vented to my partner about it and was like, I think somebody at work has a crush on me and it's really annoying. I'm like really irritated by it and I don't know why I'm having such a strong reaction to it. And I had a pit in my stomach. I knew that it didn't feel right. And I knew I had begun to feel like I couldn't really trust that person. Um, and that was pretty soon after that he started pursuing me as a dance partner. So he wanted to partner with me,
Mm.
and he would say things to me like, I've been rooting for you since the beginning. You're really talented. I think you're a great dancer. You don't deserve to be unpaid. You don't deserve to be in the back of the room, like, let's get you to the front of the room and let's get you seen. I have a great connection with the director. If you dance with me, I can get you seen by the director. Um,
That's
Things
very
like that.
reminiscent of the Boston Ballet scandal,
Yeah. Yeah.
of the we'll make you a star kind of
Yeah.
mentality.
It's very common. And I feel grateful that I really have read articles like that
Mhm.
and also had experienced myself and had taken time to like go to therapy and really process some trauma that had
Good.
happened to me where I was like able to realize what this person is doing to me is not okay.
Mhm.
Um and yeah, so it got to the point where we were dancing together and um he inappropriately touched me several times while we were dancing, and I had asked him not to several times.
Mm.
Um, and again, this is all before I had known anything prior about him. I
Mm.
didn't know any of the accusations prior to this. And it was one of the other dancers who was watching this happen. She watched me dance with him and had kind of like seen his behavior kind of ramp up, where she felt the need to pull me aside and tell me, like, do you know what's going on with this person? Do you know what people are saying about him? I just want you to be careful.
Good for her.
And I immediately was super distraught. I was emotionally like triggered right away, um, and didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I had been trying to justify what had happened to him, what had happened between him and I, um, kind of leading up to that point, and knew I didn't feel good about it. But again, it's like dance, it's normal. We're touching each other all day. It was a contemporary pas de deux. It's like, the boundaries are pretty muddled. Ballet is like you hold the waist, the wrists, the hands,
Mhm.
contemporary is like, just um, a different world a little bit.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was interesting. But that experience kind of opened my eyes up to see like everything that had happened to me prior.
Yeah.
So the summer intensive where the kid pulled me behind the curtain and tried to kiss me, I had just written it off like that easily.
Mhm.
And every time before that I had been in a pas de deux class and felt uncomfortable, um, and not been able to like recognize, oh, that's not okay, and you feel uncomfortable for a reason. Um, yeah, I'm 24 now, and like all this stuff has just happened to me, and I'm just kind of processing and um, yeah, I don't know.
I'm
That's
very thankful for what you shared and the detail to which you're able to share it as well is I can understand that is sometimes really difficult, but it helps other dancers so much because just like I shared with you before we started recording with the term mental health, it's something I hear a lot in
yeah,
my role in the ballet world. And people throw around the term all the time, like they know what it means. And then other
yeah,
people are supposed to just be like, yeah, I know what you mean when it's like I'm having a bad mental health day. Like I shared with you, for one person, that could mean struggling with insecurities that you're not good enough at your job, insecurities about your technique that make you feel unpleasant emotions throughout your day. For another person, they can say, I'm having a bad mental health day, and they're going into a manic depressive episode and they need
yeah,
help right away. So
yeah,
when we use these very vague umbrella terms, I understand again, it is my belief that it is no one's right to your information unless you're willing to share it. So only, you share whatever you are comfortable with and no more than that.
yeah,
But anytime a dancer is at the place where they are open to sharing their specific experiences, it really does something that I'm personally really passionate about, which is putting words to the silent struggles of all dancers across the world. Not all of us, but at one point or another, a lot of us struggle um,
yeah.
with
And a lot of
various
us are
struggles.
silenced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we silence
Yeah,
ourselves because we just don't know, like, oh, that's a red flag. You just get a feeling like a pit in your stomach, which when you're so driven and goal oriented, it's like you push your own emotions aside every day to do what you're trying to do because we have this
totally.
goal of, I want to be a professional dancer. So why not just brush that aside too
Yeah,
until something really bad happens?
right. And the ability to compartmentalize, you and I talked about this before, but we're high performance athletes.
Yeah.
So like we are trained to be able to, say you get into a little fender bender on your way to the theater and
Yeah.
you're like, you have to perform a show
Put
that
it
night.
over
Like
there.
you have to be able to put it in a box, put
Yeah.
it on your in your dressing room and leave it there. Put your lipstick on, your point shoes, go out on stage, rock a full ballet, and then come back and then deal with it. Like we have, which is a superpower in a way,
Yeah.
but I also think it's like really damaging
Yeah.
um, because things that aren't as uh, clear cut, I guess, is like
Yeah.
being a little upset after a fender bender. It's we might put it in a box deeper than we even know because we
Yeah.
don't know that it can be talked about.
And we're just
Um,
going a million miles a minute. There's always something else to think about.
yeah.
And I'll speak for myself and then also a lot of dancers I know, revisiting things that we've put in a box that we think could bring up a lot of emotion for us, that can be very
Oh, yeah.
scary because it's like, well, how would it serve me to cry all day? It doesn't. I just need to move on. And we
Yeah.
keep, again, I will own my own experience. I did this for many years of my life. I'll be like, well, how does it serve me to cry about it? Just keep going.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I was carrying around so much weight beneath
Yeah.
the surface that was disconnecting me from myself. It was
Yeah.
leading me to live kind of just a numbed out existence in a way. Because
Oh my
in
God.
order
Yeah.
to feel like full joy and to be open to that, you also have to be open to the entire emotional spectrum. And there was so much I just put away that was actually preventing me from fully thriving as well. And so I'm really glad you also talked about going to therapy. I go to a therapist and I don't have like major big problems in my life right now,
No, you don't
but
need
you don't
to.
need that. You don't need
Yeah.
it. In
Yeah.
fact, it's better to get support now.
And I'm glad you said that. Like, I didn't even know. I think my ability to compartmentalize as a dancer, like just speaking for myself, I got pretty good at it. And I think like we do that a lot, or I did that a lot, stuff that would happen
Yeah.
in rehearsals. I'd be like, well, okay, deal with it another day. Um, and I danced my whole life. I never took a break. We
Mhm.
were taught, like you take 2 weeks off in the summer and you're like, good luck getting back into shape.
I
Like it's gonna be
know.
crazy. And I would sneak away when I was dancing in the ballet company. I would sneak away for the whole summer and get away with like maybe only taking a couple ballet classes. And I needed that. Like I
Yeah.
really truly needed that because I needed like mental clarity because I was in like autopilot mode and I didn't even know it and just kind of coping.
Mhm.
Um, because we tolerate so much, not always inappropriate behavior, but
Yeah.
just like harmful behavior.
Yeah.
um
It's a hard
Emotional
lifestyle.
abuse, it is, yeah, and we're going through physical lengths that a lot of people don't ever go through in their whole life. And um it wasn't even until COVID happened where it was like a forced break, really kind of for everybody. And I think this happened to a lot of people, but that was the first time that I had time to recognize some real trauma that I had in my life. And that was like
Yeah.
I wasn't dancing. I wasn't identifying as a dancer. I was just like, okay, who is Ella? And this like trauma came up for the first time ever. It
Mhm.
had happened like 4 years prior and I was like, whoa. And now I'm starting to see, like how much dance I think masked a lot of that for me. I was really good at pushing stuff down and keeping it away. And I think I could have like stretched my career and made it, I think I could have been a happier dancer if I had like had the tools to bring those things up when they, first happened and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I sought out therapy and I've taken 2 years off from dance. I've just been teaching, which has been amazing. Um, and then, yeah, that's how I feel like joining this company recently, which I'm no longer a part of. Um, I feel like I had the tools for the first time in my life to really see like,
Mm.
this is okay, this is not okay.
Yeah.
I like to dance in these ways, but I don't need to sacrifice these things to be able to dance. And that was so empowering. And that
Yeah.
was something that I wish I had as a younger dancer. I wish younger dancers, have now, just you like having a platform that you have and using that to like empower just dancers to take care of their mental health. It's
Yeah.
huge. Like we
I
did
want
not
them
have
to
that.
know who they are. Like, it sounds like a huge part of your empowerment
Yeah,
journey is knowing yourself and knowing what's important to you, what
huge.
you are willing to tolerate and what you are no longer willing to tolerate. That
Yeah.
does come from experience. And I got to that point too, where I was just like, given my past with emotional abuse, which looked a lot like using fear, shame, and humiliation to control me,
Yeah.
to beat me down into submission so that I did anything this person said, um, or else.
Yeah.
With my history after that, I became so unwilling to tolerate that ever again. And it ended up being used for good. It's something I consciously used for good in my life. And it's a
Yeah.
passion that I share with other people now because I want them to have that same empowerment that you had too, of like, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm worth. And no contract is worth disrespecting myself like that.
Yeah.
As sad as that
It's
is, because another thing is, I have a friend that you would know too. And I remember she was talking about her experience with a director, not just flirting with her, but actually making sexual advances. And she was his employee. That's so beyond inappropriate. And she left that company. And I remember her sharing in her exasperation, she was like, I'm not willing to give up on my dream to dance professionally, so I'm going to make it work. And that's why I'm here. But why
yeah.
is it me that has to leave? Why is it me that has to quit? And that's something that is a really sad, I don't want to call it a reality, but it's something that's happening still, which is I
Yeah.
see women paying the price. As much as people might say, oh no, the man is paying the price, he got fired. It's like,
A lot
well,
of men in the dance world though aren't getting fired.
yeah, it's like,
And
because like
it's
the company member you had that
yeah.
experience with, they're protected. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we need this guy because he's a talented guy. We don't need one of you because we already have like 15 of you, a
And a
talented
lot
young
of
woman.
dancers don't feel the empowerment to step forward too, and they feel like
Mhm.
there's plenty more women that will take their spot in the company.
Yeah.
So like the feeling of insecurity that we constantly have with our jobs,
Mhm.
that's, a threat to our safety because we
Totally.
don't feel comfortable enough voicing our concerns. And that's not our fault, that's the company's fault. And
Yes.
um that was like really disappointing for me when I
Mhm.
learned what happened, everything that had happened. They continued to hire this person. All the dancers were continued to be put in an environment with this person who was dangerous,
Mhm.
who had hurt many people in the past before. Um, and the majority of the dancers were too afraid to say anything
Yeah.
because the company had not created an environment that they felt safe enough to
Mm.
come forward,
Yeah.
and voice their opinions. And that is like very common. That's
Yeah.
been in every place that I've danced,
Right.
whether it's a school and you don't want to be ignored by a teacher for the rest of the year,
Mhm.
or whether it's a company and you want to be cast or you want to get a contract. It's like, um, Yeah, that's one of the
Yeah, the shut up and do what
more
you're told
frustrating
kind of
parts.
culture for
Yeah,
women
and
at
if you
least.
don't, someone else will shut up and be told,
Yeah,
do what they're told, because that's the world that we live in. That's the dance world. And
right.
that's the what I want to break down. Like that doesn't have to be the dance world.
It doesn't. I do know women that have come forward, and I think the difficult thing we have to acknowledge is we have to start looking. I'm not an expert, so maybe I shouldn't even say have to, but my sense is that just like this is my philosophy with the work that I do, when I'm trying to help dancers come to a place of mental well being and confidence, I don't do that within a framework or an ideology of the ballet world that's idealistic. It's how do we help you feel confident and empowered within the current system? Because we can't wait for it to change, or it might be years, it might be never.
Yeah,
That being said, I do see the dance world changing, and that's awesome. But with this discussion too, it seems like I'll say women have to come forward in boldness, and we make sacrifices, we take risks to say this
yeah,
is what's happening, talking to the company manager or whoever else. It is a risk, it is a liability that we take on to ourselves, sadly, but there are times when it pays off. And sometimes I would love to hear other people's comments and your thoughts to see if there are other options, but and we'll do our best in this conversation to turn it as constructive as we can,
totally.
sharing like
Yeah,
ideas of what dancers can do. But I have seen some female dancers come forward with success after multiple attempts of bringing it up and saying this isn't okay, and then bringing other women in to corroborate, yes, this happened and this isn't okay, and then
yeah,
more women come in and it's not okay. It's sad how
yeah,
many tend to have to suffer in order to get the attention. Or I've also seen the pattern of um, a company only really takes action when someone goes to the press, and as soon as the company's name gets involved,
yeah,
it's like, we're so sorry. We fired
yeah,
him right away.
yeah.
Please.
And that's the thing too, like it shouldn't matter if the press is involved, it shouldn't matter if it's the smallest studio in the town. Like
Mhm.
this kind of stuff happens everywhere and it is not to be tolerated anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I think like the most important thing that I've learned in this process, since this has happened to me um, at the company most recently, is like the power of conversation.
Yes.
And once I learned this information, I started asking questions. I
Hmm.
started asking questions to multiple dancers. I had multiple dancers reach out to me for the first time within the company, and they were open to talking. And everybody had something to say. Everybody had
Yeah.
seen something. Everybody had known something. Um, and we just, there hadn't been like a door of conversation opened yet. And so um, I think that's like the most important part that I've learned so far. Like, we just need to be talking about it. We need to be
Yeah.
comfortable openly talking about grooming and sexual harassment and assault in dance. Because we are like, just the way that dance is set up, the environment, like, we're just more susceptible to it,
Yeah.
like,
Totally.
point blank. And so we need to be aware of it and we need to be
Yeah.
comfortable talking about it. Um, yeah, and I just think about, like, how many things I could have, handled differently or even avoided if I had known, if
Hmm.
people had talked about it before when I was a kid and, like,
Right.
growing up. And if I had a professional dancer come to me and, you know, when you're a kid and you're like, "I wanna be a dancer when I grow up," it's like the most sparkly job in the world. You get point shoes and get to dance on
Uh,
stage and wear red lipstick, and it was like amazing, you know? But I really wish that somebody had been like, if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna pursue this, these are the things that you need to know.
yeah.
These are the things you need to look out for, and like this happens. So,
Hmm.
you know, be aware of it.
Yeah.
You can dance and you can dance like a long, really fulfilling career, but not at the expense of, these things,
Yeah.
your mental health, your emotional safety, or your physical safety. Um,
I
yeah, I
totally
just think
agree.
it's the most important in my experience so far,
Yeah.
just
I'm
talking
so
about it.
grateful you already, well, not only are you embodying talking about it, that's a practical takeaway for sure. We will get to what we can do when we
Yeah,
see these signs. Let's transition into talking about signs of, let's start with grooming and harassment. Those are the things that we've noticed the most. Assault often happens behind closed doors. Those are physical acts, unwanted physical acts that are violating. And I mean, I was telling you, I even feel ashamed to say that I didn't even really know the difference between harassment and assault. And if I didn't really know that until recently, clearly, how many other people don't know? Maybe I'm on my own
I
little
mean, a
island over
lot.
here, but I think it's normal. And even grooming, it's like there are a lot of gray areas within that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's
There's
talk
so much
about
I didn't
grooming.
know that had even happened to me because until I read
Yeah,
actual definitions or people's experiences and
yeah.
examples of harassment and assault, and
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh my god,
Whoa.
yeah!" Like I've experienced more of
Mhm.
this than I would like to,
Totally.
admit, and that I knew of.
Yeah, when I started
Um,
learning about brainwashing and mind control,
yeah,
I was like,
emotional abuse.
whoa, whoa. That's why I
Yeah,
made a video about it a couple of years ago, brainwashing and ballet. Got a bunch of
yeah,
views. Check it out, y'all. It's real. But yeah, let's
it's
talk
very
about
real.
this so that dancers can start to notice the signs. What are some signs of grooming? We could start there.
Um, for me, in my experience, it's mostly been pretty much just like singled out attention.
Yeah.
So kind of like, at least for me, the opposite of what you were saying, like with your emotional abuse
Mhm.
experience. Because grooming is it's a form of emotional abuse and manipulation, basically. Um, it's kind of the opposite though. Like they give you special attention and make you feel really special, um, and make you feel like what this dancer was saying to me, like you don't deserve to be treated this way, you don't deserve to
Mhm.
be in the back, like I've got your back. um any kind of like opportunity that they can offer you, like if you stick with me, I'll be able to, get you to the front of the room, or if you dance with me, I'll get you cast in this part, kind of thing.
Mm.
um a lot of times I feel like, I mean, we're most dancers are most vulnerable to grooming when we're in a pre-professional setting and transitioning into a career, because
Mhm.
we're in, a pretty vulnerable place in our career where we're
Yeah.
working really hard to get seen and get noticed. And yeah,
Our desires can definitely be exploited for sure. I actually made a video about
yeah,
that. I can link below. Exploitation of the dreamers. It's common in a lot of industries that are similar to dance. It could be in acting, in music, in these industries where people are working really, really hard and only a few can make it. And
yeah,
the pursuit is all consuming. If you have a desire that you'll give anything for, there are people who will come along and say, I see
I
you
can
want
help
that
you.
thing. I can help you, and
Yeah.
present themselves as a bit of the hero. And yeah,
And
I
it's
could totally see how
more
that comes in.
more likely than not, like at least in all of my scenarios, where I've experienced this, it's from a person who holds a position of power. So
Yeah.
whether that be like they're higher up in the company, or they're a teacher, or
Mhm.
yeah, so just like within the hierarchy of dance, they hold like a higher role in seniority, and we're usually at the bottom, and they're
Yeah.
like, let me help you get up here.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I did some
Yeah,
research, I saw that there could even be not only the special treatment, but also gift giving and any gesture that could help to form not only a bond, but a bond of trust.
Yeah.
That then when the trust is there, there is typically more of an opening for, well, I can go past that boundary, or I can say this thing because you trust me, right? Or I've done
Yeah.
this for you, so why not, do this for me.
Something else that kind of struck me in my scenario that really like raised a red flag was before I knew any of the information about him in the company, he had said to me, as if kind of covering his bases, like, if anyone says anything about me, like, don't
Mm,
believe them. Gossip is really common in this company. Um, I just want you to believe me for what I have to say and who I am right here as face value.
mm,
And don't listen to what anybody says if they say anything about me. And I was just kind of like, okay, red flag. But I only
yeah.
knew that was a red flag because I'm 24 years old and I've, you know, been in the dance world for a little bit now and have learned a lot in the last couple
Hmm.
years. And but yeah, that's a big one too. Like
Yeah.
they want you to trust them, they want you to believe them. It's almost like isolating the two of you too in like a in a scenario that's like you can't trust any of them, but you can trust me.
Yeah. I saw that also in the Boston Ballet case of like,
Yeah.
don't tell people about us, kind of a
Yeah.
thing, or don't believe what they say about us or me. And one thing as well, as I was studying that specific case, um, because I actually happen to know one of the dancers who was involved.
Wow.
It's the when the person was giving advice about if you're a dancer who sees another dancer who might seem isolated, or you wonder, okay, you have very close contact with that person, are you okay? She said, don't be surprised if you're met with defensiveness. I'm like, no, I'm fine, because you might still be in that stage of justifying or being afraid of what that person, your abuser, might do to you if it gets out that you talk to someone. So that was a sign that I was really surprised by. But now I'm less surprised because it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I I mean, when the dancer approached me and was like, "Are you okay? Do you know what's going on?" I was
Mm,
like, "What do you mean? He just has a crush on me. Like, it's fine.
yeah.
That was all an accident. Like, it's fine." And I considered myself to be like pretty aware of the situation and what was
Mhm.
happening
Right.
and what he was doing. And even I like, went home and days afterwards was like trying to justify it to myself, like what had happened. And a lot of times the people who are being abused and put into those circumstances don't know that they are.
Mm.
And so yeah, if you approach somebody and you're like, "Are you okay? Do you I saw something happen in the studio the other day and I just wanted to check in." It will often be met with defensiveness because I
Mm.
mean, more often than not, they don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but as soon as somebody came to me and pointed that out, it got me thinking like, "Am I okay?
Yeah.
Was that okay?"
Mhm.
Which is huge. Super important for people to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I think a great takeaway for dancers listening is if you are the person who is getting approached and you're just questioning, like, I feel weird about this kind of treatment, maybe if you notice yourself justifying their behavior, that might be cause for
Totally.
asking questions or talking to another dancer and being like, I'm feeling this. I'm not trying to go public about it right now, but what do you see in this person? Am
Yeah.
I overreacting here? Here's what I'm telling myself. Just opening up about what's going on in your mind to someone else, even like two people to kind of who are trusted people who can be, trusted with that kind of information and your vulnerability. Um, that I'm sure could be a really great safeguard. Hopefully,
Totally.
it's one step.
I think in my scenario I was lucky because everybody in the company knew about him and stuff that had come up about him. And so they were kind of able to already, be on guard and it I, what I had to say was believable because people had experienced it themselves in their
Mhm.
own ways. And I feel lucky that that was, my scenario. But I think a lot of dancers too will probably be met with like maybe the opposite and like, I don't know, maybe you're overreacting, which is
Yeah.
what leads me to another thing. Like, what can you do as a dancer if you feel like, something is wrong? I think the biggest thing is just trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you start to justify someone else's behavior, um, stop yourself because
Mm, yeah.
that feeling in your stomach that says that doesn't feel right, where you have to question, like,
So
am I
true.
okay? Was that okay? Like, that's really more likely than not going to be true and
Yeah,
right.
every single time, Ella, I've sensed that in a person, every time I've been right.
Yeah, yeah,
Every time.
same.
And many times I hadn't trusted it. It's like,
Yeah,
it's amazing how I can meet someone for the first time and I get the sense like there's something you're hiding. Or another person, it's like, I sense you have an anger problem. I'm uncomfortable with the way you're. Maybe I also have just crazy spidey senses, but they've always been right.
I mean, I think like dancers too are very intuitive people.
Mhm.
We're taught to like feel the music and feel our bodies, and like that's what our job is, and we are
Mhm.
trained our whole life to do that, and that is a superpower in itself. So if you
Yeah.
have a pit in your stomach that's like, the way that that person just touched me in the hallway was not okay,
Yeah.
um but oh, it was an accident, or he probably didn't mean to do that,
Right.
or maybe he didn't hear me when I said I didn't want him to do that, and so that's why it happened again. That
Mhm.
feeling in your stomach is your intuition, and it's probably correct.
Yes,
Um,
yes. And
and
that's a deep part of your subconscious mind that's designed to protect you. It's that
yeah,
primordial sense
yeah,
that we all have as people that I think we're kind of trained, especially as dancers. I notice in myself and then in a lot of the clients I work with, there is an assumption that logic is king or queen, that, oh, I know logically that thought isn't true about me, but well, what do
yeah,
you feel is true? We operate out of what we feel often as humans, not what we think. And it's
yeah,
really important to trust the wisdom that is innate within that intuition. That doesn't mean you have to like immediately go like, this person's a predator, like right
yeah.
away. But entertaining what truth is there. What is this sense trying to tell me? That's super important.
I spent a lot of time in therapy talking about like being able to connect my brain to my stomach, like that gut
Mhm.
feeling.
Yeah.
Um, and going through my past experiences and knowing that like every time something happened, my gut was right. And
Mm.
so like my
Yeah.
healing process thus far has been kind of like catching my brain up to that. Um,
Same girl. I totally feel
yeah,
that.
it's pretty wild, but
Yeah.
it's so powerful when you get those two on the same page.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. I'm wondering what dancers can do if they are maybe like me. In my experience, like I said, I didn't have a lot of firsthand experience with grooming or harassment. I did experience things, in my life outside of ballet of really unwanted comments about my body as a child by older men. That's super inappropriate.
Oh
And
yeah.
then even in the ballet world, I've seen, like I talked about, no matter your age, an employee versus employer relationship, director and dancer, there should not be comments about your body, nothing
Yeah.
to sexualize you in any way, no sorts of advanced flirtatious behavior. That's really inappropriate. So
Yeah.
I've experienced some, or like just kind of being a little bit too familiar between me and there was a rehearsal director who just started to kind of seem like, oh, I'm trying to flirt with you. And
Yeah.
thank God I was about to leave because I was like, that's super weird. So maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
I have had more experience than I thought,
You
but
probably do.
I
It's just
probably
like when
do.
we don't know like what that looks like,
Yeah, I was
can't
just like,
point it
oh, that's
out.
weird.
Yeah.
But I have seen, for example, in a school I was a part of, I have seen a older man giving very physical corrections to a lot of the young boys. That
Mm.
was something that even back then I was like, something about that just seems
You knew
weird.
it didn't. Yeah.
But I didn't know what the heck to do about that. It was so easy for
Yeah.
me to compartmentalize, like, well, thank goodness it's not happening to me, which is kind of sad to say that that was my reaction, but I'm sure I'm not
Yeah.
alone with that. So I'm wondering
Not.
what you think we can do if we kind of see something and it's not technically our problem, but like, what do you think we could do to help out our fellow dancers?
Um, yeah, good question. I'm really grateful for the dancers that, you know, saw something that happened with me
Mhm.
and came forward and talked to me because um yeah, I don't know what I would have done without it.
Yeah.
I think if it the saying, if you see something, say something,
Mhm.
is really powerful and goes really long way. Whether that's to the dancer that you feel is being harmed, or
Mhm.
whether that's to a parent when you go home and you feel like you need to um, talk about something that happened in the day that made you feel a certain way. Like that's huge. Um, just really being able to talk about it. If you see something um, that doesn't make you feel comfortable, if you see something that you know is not right, because I mean, I feel like I'd like to think and hope that like the majority of dancers know, what's okay and what's not deep down. Um, and so yeah, finding somebody that you trust, a parent, maybe you trust a teacher, maybe you trust another dancer, um, to talk with.
Mhm.
I think if you're in a company setting and they have a company manager, or if they have an HR person, that's huge. It doesn't mean you're going to go make a file complaint, like formal
Yeah.
complaint or anything. If it gets to that point, though, like absolutely go
You're
make
right.
a formal complaint, because
Yeah.
that complaint can help other people down the line.
Mhm.
Um, and even if it didn't happen to you, if you saw something happen and you don't want to approach the dancer about it, but you knew that you didn't feel right about it, you can go talk to your HR, you can go talk to a teacher, a person, a parent, whatever, um, and say something. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
happen directly to you, because like we said
Right.
earlier, like a lot of times um, the dancers who are being abused don't know they are being abused. Um,
Yes. And I want to say that one act from a dancer that I saw, I thought it was so admirable is there was one dancer who was about to leave the company who took that opportunity to say, I don't have anything to lose here anymore. So I'm going to take all the things I experienced and that I heard from other dancers. She didn't do this to be spiteful. It was just, wow, out of respect and responsibility to protect these women in this company, I'm
yeah,
going to actually file a complaint. And she did that. And I admire that so much because I mean,
it's not
I
easy
don't
to
even
do.
I don't need to justify it like, oh, she wasn't trying to be nasty. Like, listen to me, as if there's this assumption that women who do that are trying to be nasty. Ew, blah, misogyny, blah, internalized. Blah. But yeah, I think we can think of how can we do that kind of as, let's say, as sisters in the ballet world, like could you
Yeah.
have an ally who's about to leave that school or company who might be willing to advocate for you so that you can remain anonymous as much as is possible, and this person can move forward with filing the complaint? Because
Yeah.
obviously one of our biggest fears as dancers is that our career will suffer just for protecting our well-being, which is
And
something that shouldn't have to happen.
it's my hope that someday like that's not the reality,
Yeah.
but in this point in time it is.
Mhm.
Um and so yeah, that's like a great option for sure. Um if I did that at the company that I was just in, I was like, I'm not getting paid. The way that the company has handled this and covered up the things that this person has done is not something that I tolerate, and it's not a
Mhm.
company that I want to even like try to work for. So I'm leaving. But before I'm leaving, like I'm gonna make a complaint. I was
Good
the
for
first person
you.
to file a formal complaint. And I hope that it kind of I know that it opened up doors for dancers to feel comfortable to talk about it with each other, which they weren't doing before.
Mm.
But I hope that more dancers have gone forward to HR and made complaints. And it's unfortunate again that like the state of the company is the dancer's responsibility to like improve upon.
Mhm.
And it like, it shouldn't be the dancer's responsibility to create a safe work environment for them. That's the employer's responsibility. Um, but yeah, if you need to take it upon your own hands. The other thing is too, like maybe you are afraid of losing your contract, but if you get multiple dancers to be on your side, that's, multiple
Yes.
contracts um, that are at risk or that are
Mhm.
like if you go on strike.
Yes. Yeah, I get what you mean. Totally. Safety in numbers.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
even like people that are higher up in the company that maybe their voice holds more importance, which is unfortunate. Like all voices should be equally important,
Mhm.
but that's just not how it
That
is
is
right
how it
now.
is culturally at the moment.
Yeah, that's, yeah, it's just the reality at the moment. So if
Mhm.
you can find somebody's voice that's more important and will be listened to more by the director, the person at the front of the room, or the company manager or HR, whatever that looks like, um, and just open the door to just have a conversation with that
Yeah.
person. You never know where it's going to go. Um, but there's definitely strength in numbers. There's also just like so much growth that can happen within the community if we talk about it. And it's not just
Yeah.
talking about harassment, it's just talking about mental health in dance in general. And like before any of this had even started with this person in the company, I started building a relationship with the other apprentices. Like, we're in this together, you guys. Like, tell yourself you did something good today. Go home and,
Yeah.
like you're doing a good job. And we emotionally kind of leaned on each other in a way that I hadn't experienced in a company
Mm.
before. And I feel like maybe that was a good platform for them to feel comfortable enough to come forward
Yeah.
and tell me like what was happening with this other dancer.
That's
So
beautiful.
just things like that, I just think are so important and not common enough in dance.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so thankful for the example you've set of reflection, self-trust, self-advocacy, advocacy for others,
Yeah. And
healing
I'm a work in
journeys.
progress. I
Oh
definitely
yeah.
like,
Same.
don't have it figured out and I don't know what my future as a dancer looks like or whatever, but I know that like my experiences leading up to this point can be helpful to another dancer, even
And
if
they
it's just
are.
one more dancer, even if that's just having a
I think it'll
conversation
be
with
at least a
you.
few hundred.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to claim to know that I know what I'm talking about, but um
And
yeah, just
neither of us
experiences that
do,
we've had.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are the expert of our own experience. And I
Yeah.
think you have displayed that and shared that really beautifully, again, courageously. I don't say that lightly.
Thanks.
I know I hear it a lot. Like sometimes I get honestly a little cringy when people are like, thank you for your vulnerability. It's like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's fine.
I
But
just feel
sometimes
like
it does take courage for these things. I know you and I were both nervous before this conversation. So thank you a lot, honestly. This has been
thank
really good.
you. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we were able to talk again about it. And I just
Yeah.
hope that more people start talking about it. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. And
We
we'll
don't,
have the resources linked below to
yeah,
definitions of terms like grooming, harassment, assault, the
there's
differences between
so
all of them,
many,
hotlines. We'll have it linked, articles.
totally.
Yeah.
Learning to like through this process, I've kind of dove in. I'm like really lucky to have the support system that I have. I have my therapist, I've got
Mhm.
my partner, my friends, my family,
So
like
great.
everyone is, they've been so amazing and supportive throughout this whole process, trying to figure out what to do and how to um, take care of myself also at the same time. That's been like a really kind of interesting thing sneaking up on me and being like, oh, you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of emotional labor right now, trying to process this. Like maybe just take a day off. And
Yeah.
um, but there are resources, I guess, is what I'm
Totally.
saying. And there are, you know, I put together like a list too, the same. I'll send it to you. But
Oh, great. Yeah.
there's two different organizations that do like training to prevent abuse within
Mhm.
dance settings specifically, which is
Good.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like us as dancers, if we can encourage studios to do that, if we can encourage companies to do things like that, I mean, that's huge. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. And that's definitely something that did not exist when I was, younger and in school, stuff like that.
Totally. Yeah. And if
So,
anyone is listening and they're like, oh, well, cool that these exist, but how am I going to get my company or school to talk about it? I will say, do not underestimate the power of being like, hey, this guest teacher is awesome. Would you consider having them for the summer program? That's how I've gotten invited to speak or teach
yeah,
at a couple different places. Teachers listen. That's how I know a lot of teachers, speakers, different professional resources. They get connected to studios through the dancers saying, hey, this is worth looking at. Would you consider having them come to the
totally.
studio? It
Totally.
works, you guys. People
Yeah.
are trying to fill up programs. People are these days actually trying somewhat to be culturally
Yeah.
relevant and keep up with stuff. So
So why not
do
make the
something.
program that want to train in something that just benefits you even more? So
Totally.
I think that's huge. Yeah.
Even if it ends up just being that they're like, we can't have the team come out to talk to the dancers here, but we can. Why not just do a printout, put it on the bulletin board so that
Huge.
dancers
They
know
have
how
like
to contact?
worksheets you can do.
It is
Yeah.
out there.
Hotlines. I mean, all sorts of stuff that I didn't know existed.
Yeah,
And I only found after this, most recent thing that has happened to me. And I'm like, this is awesome. There's so
it
much
is.
for people um, who maybe if you feel like you don't have a support system to go to, there are people that are there to help you. And
Yes.
it's, yeah, amazing. Use those resources like as much
Yes.
as you can.
Do that. Let's stop saying there's no one out there talking about this. That's my personal passion. I still see people online being like, there's no one talking about mental health in ballet. I'm like,
Like,
you're not looking, fool. I didn't,
it's
you know
true. I
me. I
mean,
just I'm joking, but it's like, yeah, I used to say that too, but it's because I wasn't looking for them. Who knows how
mhm,
many organizations were out there like 10 years ago that I was just like, no
yeah,
one is out there helping us. I didn't do a Google search.
yeah.
So
Well,
look
the
for
thing
what's
is
out there.
too, like maybe we felt that because it wasn't accessible to us when we were, in school and in training and stuff like that. And even if it was out there, like it wasn't at our school.
Mhm.
So we need to talk about it. We need like
Yeah.
it can always be talked about more amongst the dancers, amongst the parents. Parents, if you're paying tuition for your kid to go to a school, like make it a good school for them. Make it something that's going to like you're investing in the longevity of their career too.
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
all of this stuff, your mental health, your physical health, um, your physical safety, all of that contributes to being a professional dancer for as many years as you want to be or can be. So
100%.
when we're like missing those really important things, we're probably not going to last very long in a very like happy, healthy way.
And
Um,
with those things, we can last a while in a healthy, happy way, hopefully, as much as
yeah.
is possible for us personally. So,
Yeah. And that looks
uh,
different for everybody too.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Ella, this has been very, very good, very enriching to talk to you about this. I really believe that
Oh,
it is. Oh, we skipped for like half a second. Okay, but we're back.
oh,
I was just
okay.
saying thank you for this conversation. It's been very enriching and enlightening. And I really believe that, and I hope that it will impact the dancers who are watching and start a positive ripple effect from two non-experts just
Yeah.
willing to talk about it. We wish the best to everyone.
I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. Jinx.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we will sign off. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye bye.